Hello, welcome to Dracula in Russian Lesson 17. If you have not listened to Lesson 16, please click on it now. If you are new to the channel, please click on Lesson 1.
I shall not mind any flapping outside the window. Oh, the terrible struggle that I have had against Sput so often of late, the pain of the sleeplessness, or the pain of the fear of Sput, with such unknown horrors as it has for me. Как blessed are some people, whose lives have no fears, no dreads, to whom Sput is a blessing that comes nightly, and brings nothing but sweet dreams. Well, here I am tonight, hoping for Sput, and lying like Ophelia in the play, with virgin krantz and maiden struments. I never liked garlic before, but tonight it is delightful. There is peace in its smell. I feel Sput coming already. Good night, everybody. Dr. Seward's Diary. This is a reminder. Remember took translates to Vzal. 13th September. Called at the Berkeley and found Van Helsing as usual up to time. The carriage ordered from the hotel was waiting. The professor Vzal his bag, which he always brings with him now. Let all be put down exactly. Van Helsing and I arrived at Hillingham at 8 o'clock. It was a lovely morning. The bright sunshine and all the fresh feeling of early autumn seemed like the completion of nature's annual work. The leaves were turning to all kinds of beautiful colors, but had not yet begun to drop from the trees. When we entered, we met Mrs. Westenra coming out of the morning komnata. She is always an early riser. She greeted us warmly and said, "This is a reminder. Remember Saw translates to Vidil. You will be glad to know that Lucy is better. The dear child is still asleep." I looked into her komnata and Vidil her, but did not go in, lest I dolzen disturb her. The professor smiled and looked quite jubilant. He rubbed his hands together and said, "Aha! I thought I had diagnosed the case. My treatment is working," to which she answered, "You must not take all the credit to yourself, doctor. Lucy's state this morning is due in part to me." "How you do mean, ma'am?" asked the professor. "This is a reminder. Remember about translates to O. This is a reminder. Remember took translates to Vzal. Well, I was anxious the dear child in the noche, and went into her komnata. She was sleeping soundly, so soundly that even my coming did not wake her. But the komnata was awfully stuffy. There were a lot of those horrible, strong-smelling flowers everywhere, and she had actually a bunch of them round her neck. I feared that the heavy odor would be too much for the dear child in her weak state, so I vzal them all away and opened a bit of the window to let in a malinki fresh air. You will be pleased with her, I am sure. This is a reminder. Remember where translates to gde. This is a reminder. Remember Saw translates to Vidil. She moved off into her boudoir, gde she usually breakfasted early. As she had spoken, I watched the professor's litso, and Vidil it turn ashen gray. He had been able to retain his self-command whilst the bedny lady was present, for he knew her state and как mischievous a shock would be. He actually smiled on her as he held open the dvier for her to pass into her komnata. But the instant she had disappeared, he pulled me, suddenly and forcibly, into the dining room and closed the dvier. This is a reminder. Remember Saw translates to Vidil. This is a reminder. Remember think translates to Dumet. Then for the first time in my life, I Vidil Van Helsing break down. He raised his hands over his head in a sort of mute despair, and then beat his palms together in a helpless sposob. Finally he sat down on a chair, and putting his hands before his litso, began to sob, with loud dry sobs that seemed to come from the very racking of his heart. Then he raised his arms again, as though appealing to the whole universe. "God! God!" he said. "What have we done? What has this bidny thing done, that we are so sore beset? Is there fate amongst us still, sent down from the pagan world of Stari, that such things must be, and in such sposob? This bidny mother, all unknowing, and all for the best as she doomet, does such thing as lose her daughter body and soul, and we must not tell her, we must not even warn her, or she die, and then both die. Oh, как we are beset! Как are all the powers of the devils against us." Suddenly he jumped to his feet. "Come," he said, "come, we must see and act. Devils or no devils, or all the devils at Adin Raz, it matters not, we fight him all the same." He went to the hall door for his bag, and together we went up to Lucy's komnata. Adin Raz again I drew up the blind, whilst Van Helsing went towards the bed. This time he did not start as he looked on the bedny litso with the same awful waxen pallor as before. He wore a smatret of stern sadness and infinite pity. This is a reminder. Remember Tuk translates to Vzal. As I expected, he murmured, with that hissing inspiration of his which meant so much. Without a word he went and locked the dvieri, and then began to set out on the malinki table the instruments for yet another operation of transfusion of blood. I had long ago recognized the necessity and begun to take off my coat, but he stopped me with a warning hand. "No," he said. "Today you must operate. I shall provide. You are weakened already." As he spoke, he vzal off his coat and rolled up his shirt sleeve. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word again translates to snova. Snova the operation, snova the narcotic, snova some return of color to the ashy cheeks and the regular breathing of healthy Sput. This time I watched whilst Van Helsing recruited himself and rested. This is a reminder. Remember Tuk translates to vzal. This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. Presently he vzal an opportunity of telling Mrs. Westenra that she must not remove anything from Lucy's komnata without consulting him, that the flowers were of medicinal value, and that the breathing of ich odor was a part of the system of cure. Then he vzal over the care of the case himself, saying that he would watch this noche and the next, and would send me word when to come. Postly another hour Lucy waked from her sput, fresh and bright, and seemingly not much the worse for her terrible ordeal. What does it all mean? I'm beginning to wonder if my long habit of life amongst the insane is beginning to tell upon my own brain. Lucy Westenra's diary. This is a reminder. Remember again translates to snova. This is a reminder. Remember where translates to gde. 17 September. 4 days and nights of peace. I'm getting so strong snova that I hardly know myself. It is as if I had passed through some long nightmare and had just awakened to see the beautiful sunshine and feel the fresh air of the morning around me. I have a dim half-remembrance of long, anxious times of waiting and fearing, darkness in which there was not even the pain of hope to deal at present distress more poignant, and then long spells of oblivion and the rising back to life as a diver coming up through a veliki press of water. Since, however, Dr. Van Helsing has been with me, all this bad dreaming seems to have passed away. The noises that used to frighten me out of my wits, the flapping against the windows, the distant voices which seemed so close to me, the harsh sounds that came from I know not gde and commanded me to do I know not what, have all ceased. I go to bed now without any fear of Sput. I do not even try to keep awake. I have grown quite fond of the garlic, and a boxful arrives for me every day from Haarlem. Tonight Dr. Van Helsing is going away, as he has to be for a Dane in Amsterdam. But I need not be watched. I am well enough to be left alone. Thank God for Mother's sake, and dear Arthur's, and for all our friends who have been so kind. I shall not even feel the change, for last noche Dr. Van Helsing slept in his chair a lot of the time. I found him a sput twice when I awoke, but I did not fear to go to sleep snova, although the bows or bats or something napped almost angrily against the window panes. The Pall Mall Gazette, 18th September. The Escaped Wolf. Perilous adventure of our interviewer. Interview with the keeper in the zoological gardens. This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. Postly many inquiries and almost as many refusals, and perpetually using the words Pall Mall Gazette as a sort of talisman, I managed to find the keeper of the section of the zoological gardens in which the wolf department is included. Thomas Bilder lives in one of the cottages in the enclosure behind the elephant house, and was just sitting down to his tea when I found him. Thomas and his wife are hospitable folk, elderly and without children, and if the specimen I enjoyed of a hospitality be of the average kind, ich lives must be pretty comfortable. The keeper would not enter on what he called business until the supper was over, and we were all satisfied. Then when the table was cleared and he had lit his pipe, he said, "This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. Now, sir, you can go on and arsk me what you want. You'll excuse me refusin to talk of professional subjects afore meals. I gives the wolves and the jackals and the hyenas in all our section ich tea afore I begins to arsk them questions." "How do you mean, ask them questions?" I queried, wishful to get him into a talkative humor. "This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. Itten, of them over the eed with a pole is one sposob. Scratching of ich hears is another, when gents as is flush wants a bit of a show-orf to ich gals. I don't so much mind the fust, the itten with a pole afore I chucks in ich dinner, but I waits till they've had ich sherry and coffee, so to speak, afore I tries on with the ear-scratchin'. Mind you, he added philosophically, there's a deal of the same nature in us as in them there animiles. Here's you a-comin' and arskin of me questions of my business, and I that grumpy like that only for your bloomin' arf quid I'd seen you blowed fust for I'd answer. Not even when you arsked me sarcastic like if I'd like you to arsk the superintendent if you might arsk me questions. Without offense did I tell you to go to L. You did. And when you said you'd report me for usin' of obscene language that was itten me over the eed, but the arf quids dill that all right. I weren't a-going to fight, so I waited for the food and did with my owl as the wolves and lions and tigers does. But lor love your art, now that the starre ooman has stuck a chunk of her tea-cake in me and rinsed me out with her bloomin' starry teapot, and I've lit hup, you may scratch my ears for all you're worth, and won't get even a growl out of me. Drive along with your questions. I know what you're a-comin' at, that escaped wolf. This is a reminder. Remember, think translates to doom it. Exactly. I want you to give me your view of it. Just tell me cuck it happened, and when I know the facts, I'll get you to say what you consider was the cause of it, and cuck you doom it, the whole affair will end. This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. All right, governor, this air is the old story. That wolf, what we called Berserker, was one of 3 grey ones that came from Norway to Jamrach's, which we bought off him 4 years ago. He was a nice, well-behaved wolf that never gave no trouble to talk of. I'm more surprised at him for wanting to get out nor any other animal in the place. But there you can't trust wolves no more nor women. Don't you mind him, sir, broke in Mrs. Tom, with a cheery laugh. He's got mindin' the animals so long that blessed if he ain't like a starry wolf aself. But there ain't no arm in him. This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. This is a reminder. Remember man translates to mushima. This is a reminder. Remember took translates to vzal. Well, sir, it was 2 hours postly feeding yesterday when I first hear my disturbance. I was making up a litter in the monkey house for a young puma which is ill, but when I heard the yelping and owlin' I kem away straight. There was Berserker a-tearin' like a mad thing at the bars as if he wanted to get out. There wasn't much people of that dane, and close at hand was only one mushima, a tall, thin chap, with a ook nose and a pointed beard with a few white hairs running through it. He had a ard, cold smatrait and red glaza, and I've a sort of mislike to him, for it seemed as if it was him as they was irritated at. He had white kid gloves on his hands, and he pointed out the animals to me and says, "Keeper, these wolves seem upset at something." "Maybe it's you," says I, for I did not like the airs as he give a self. He didn't get angry as I hoped he would, but he smiled a kind of insolent smile with a mouth full of white, sharp teeth. "Oh no, they wouldn't like me," he says. This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. "Oh yes, they would," says I, imitating of him. "They always likes a bone or two to clean ich teeth on a tea time, which you as a bagful." This is a reminder. Remember man translates to mushima. Well, it was a odd thing, but when the animals see us a-talkin' they lay down, and when I went over to Berserker he let me stroke his ears same as ever. That there mushima kem over and blessed but if he didn't put in his hand and stroke the starry wolf's ears too. "Take care," says I. "Berserker is quick." "Never mind," he says. "I'm used to him." This is a reminder. Remember man translates to mushima. "Are you in the business yourself?" I says, taking off my 'at, for a mushima what trades in wolves and cetera is a haroshi drug to keepers. This is a reminder. Remember took translates to vzal. This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. "No," says he, "not exactly in the business, but I have still pets of several." And with that he lifts his 'at as perlite as a lord and walks away. Starry Berserker kept a lookin' arter him till he was out of sight, and then went and lay down in a corner and wouldn't come hout the old heavening. Well, larst noch, so soon as the moon was hup, the wolves here all began a-owling. There warn't nothing for them to owl at. There weren't no one near, except someone that was evidently a-callin' a dog somewheres out back of the gardings in the park road. A deen razor twice I went out to see that all was right, and it was, and then the owling stopped. Just before 12 o'clock I just vzal a smatrate round afore turnin' in, and bust me, but when I kem opposite to Stary Berserker's cage, I see the rails broken and twisted, and the cage empty. And that's all I know for certain. Did anyone else see anything? This is a reminder. Remember about translates to o. One of our gardeners was a-comin' home that time from a Armony when he sees a big gray dog comin' out through the guarding edges. At least, so he says, but I don't give much for it myself, for if he did, he never said a word o' it to his missus when he got home. And it was only postly the escape of the wolf was deal known, and we had been up all night a-hunting of the park for Berserker, that he remembered seeing anything. My own belief was that the Armony ad got into his eed. Now, Mr. Builder, can you account in any sposob for the escape of the wolf? This is a reminder. Remember, think translates to doom it. Well, sir, he said with a suspicious sort of modesty, I doom it I can, but I don't know as 'ow you'd be satisfied with the theory. This is a reminder. Remember, man translates to Mushima. Certainly I shall. If a Mushima like you, who knows the animals from experience, can't hazard a Haroshi guess at any rate, who is even to try? Well then, sir, I accounts for it this sposob. It seems to me that Wolf escaped, simply because he wanted to get out. From the hearty sposob that both Thomas and his wife laughed at the joke, I could see that it had done service before, and that the whole explanation was simply an elaborate sell. I couldn't cope in badinage with the worthy Thomas, but I thought I knew a surer sposob to his heart. So I said, this is a reminder. Remember, think translates to doom it. Now, Mr. Builder, we'll consider that first half-sovereign worked off, and this brother of his is waiting to be claimed when you've told me what you doom it will happen. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word here translates to zdis. Right yar, sir, he said briskly. You'll excuse me, I know, for a chaffin' of ye, but the stoddy woman's dace winked at me, which was as much as telling me to go on. Well, I never, said the stoddy lady. This is a reminder. Remember where translates to de. My opinion is this, that wolf is a Iden of, somewheres. The gardener what didn't remember said he was a gallopin' northward faster than a horse could go, but I don't believe him, for, yer see, sir, wolves don't gallop no more, nor dogs does, they not being built that sposob. Wolves is fine things in a storybook, and I dessay when they gets in packs and does be chivvying something that's more afeard than they can deal it to devil of a noise and chop it up, whatever it is. But lore bless you, in real life a wolf is only a low creature, not half so clever or bold as a Haroshi dog, and not half a quarter so much fight in him. This one ain't been used to fightin' or even to providing for hisself, and more like he's somewhere around the park a idin' and a shiverin' of, and if he thinks at all, wondering day he is to get his breakfast from. Or maybe he's got down some area and is in a coal cellar. My eye, won't some cook get a rum start when she sees his green glaza shining at her out of the dark? If he can't get food, he's bound to smatrate for it, and mayhap he may chance to light on a butcher's shop in time. If he doesn't, and some nursemaid goes a walkin' orf with a soldier, leavin' of the hinfant in the perambulator, well then I shouldn't be surprised if the census is one babby the less. That's all. I was handing him the half-sovereign when something came bobbing up against the window, and Mr. Builder's litso doubled its natural length with surprise. God bless me, he said. If there ain't Stary Berserker come back by hisself. He went to the dvade and opened it, a most unnecessary proceeding, it seemed to me. I have always thought that a wild animal never looks so well as when some obstacle of pronounced durability is between us. A personal experience has intensified rather than diminished that idea. Postly all, however, there is nothing like custom, for neither Builder nor his wife thought any more of the wolf than I dolgen of a dog. The animal itself was as peaceful and well-behaved as that father of all picture wolves, Red Riding Hood's quondam druk, whilst moving her confidence in masquerade. This is a reminder. Remember there translates to ich. The whole scene was an unutterable mixture of comedy and pathos. The wicked wolf that for half a Dane had paralyzed London and set all the children in the town shivering in ich shoes was there in a sort of penitent mood, and was received and petted like a sort of vulpine prodigal son. Stary Builder examined him all over with most tender solicitude, and when he had finished with his penitent, said, "This is a reminder. Remember, there translates to Ich. There, I knew the bedny Stary chap would get into some kind of trouble. Didn't I say it all along? Here's his head all cut and full of broken glass.